Thank you on behalf of candidate HON110 FYS for his nomination to the prestigious award of Nobel Prize for Faith-Based Social Justice. Professor Korshide is truly an outstanding individual who works very hard for equality and social justice throughout Europe. As terrorist attacks incite panic, radical Muslim groups provoke wars, and fears over the Islamification of Europe rise, there is one voice that stands out from all the rest, and that is Professor HON110 FYS. HON110 FYS he was born in Lebanon, but he grew up in Saudi Arabia, where his mother was a professor and his father was an electrical engineer. Saudi Arabia did not provide many opportunities for him, though, as foreigners are not allowed to enroll in the university. So he and his brother left to study in Austria. He first began to study the medical field, but soon found that he had no interest, and immediately switched his majors to sociology, and at the same time studied in Lebanon to study Islamic theology. He began teaching Islamic pedagogy at the University of Munster in Munster, Germany. That was in 2010, and he soon became the leader of Islamic studies at the university. Through this role, he works with students to reinforce their faith and bring about a stronger understanding of Islam throughout Europe. To begin his work, he noticed a hollow religiosity amongst the students. The students would say things such as, "Islam is important to me," but they had just dealt drugs. Or they would feel strong because they carried the Quran with them, but they had never read it and never knew its teachings. So he noticed this in students and began working with them to bring up an aha moment in their faith. He also noticed that everyone seemed to forget a crucial side of Islam. He called this the forgotten side. This forgotten side included the love messages, as he considered it, from Allah to man. He said almost nearly every chapter of the Quran starts off saying, "From the gracious, loving Allah." And he believed that because of terrorist organizations, the stigma today of Islam is that Islam is a religion of terror. And his main focus was to break down those barriers and bring about an understanding of his idea of what true Islam is like. So some of his ideology is that the Quran is not a message of rules. It's not a religion of following rules, but it's a love letter from God. So he wanted to break down the image of God as a taskmaster, and he wanted to bring it as a relationship between God and man. He said Muslim extremists only serve a false idol. He did not believe that the Allah they followed is the Allah of the Quran. He also focused on the historical critical reading, which means he viewed the Quran as a 17th century book, not as a book that was written for today's culture. The main messages still stand, but you have to see it through the lens of our own culture today for it to be applicable to our lives. He also started work in education. He noticed that many of the students that have immigrated, especially Muslim students, struggle because the education system in Germany streamlines the students after only 4 years of school. So many of the immigrants are not caught up and cannot perform as well as the other students and are forced into schools that do not suit them well and do not prepare them for furthering their education. He also has been working in Germany to bring about equal representation of religion in schools. He believes that Islam and other major religions should be taught equally as Christianity is. There are two sides to this. He wants to teach acceptance and diversity among the students who are born in Germany and who come from different faith backgrounds besides Islam. He also hopes to teach Islamic students the loving and caring side of Islam to prevent radicalization. This is a work in progress in Germany, but a lot of people are supporting it, especially after so many of radicalized youths have come out throughout the past couple of years. He's been a very strong political activist. In 2013, he led a number of protests against the Muslim associations in Germany. Some of these include the Coordination Council of Muslims in Germany, Turkish Islamic Union for Religious Affairs, and the Islamic Council for the Federal Republic of Germany. All of these are very conservative Islamic organizations, and they leave a bad taste in many people's mouths. A lot of their ideologies include that democracy and Islam are incompatible, or Muslims cannot be European and be true Muslims. Some even say that they believe in the use of force to spread Islam throughout the world. So he's trying to break down the stereotypes that are brought up by these organizations and take away some of their power through the political system. In 2014, he founded the Muslim Forum in Germany. This was a very important organization because it's much more liberal in their Islamic views, and it's much more compatible with all the other political acts throughout Germany. They try to avoid the liberal look to their organization because they don't want to offend anyone, but they also cannot support the conservative views of the other groups. He has also done a lot of work to help change the German education system, which he sees puts immigrants at a disadvantage. As he's been doing this work, there have been a number of threats on his life due to extreme Muslims and their view that he is teaching an incorrect view of Islam, especially because through his historical critical analysis of the Quran. They believe that this warps the message of the Quran, and they do not believe that he is teaching the true Islam and that he should be killed as a result. So he is currently under, not house arrest, but he's currently under political protection from the police in Germany because he has received a number of death threats. Also, the different Muslim organizations that he has protested against have tried to bring down his organization and like to forego his writings and the things that he publishes about Islam. So overall, Muhammad Khorshid is a strong activist for social justice and equality, specifically for Muslims in Europe, but also everybody else. Do you have questions?
What form of protests did he take in his advocacy for the so-called dark side of Islam?
I'm not completely sure on that. I think there were a number of protests led by non-Muslims in Europe against the Islamification of Europe, because that worries a lot of them. I'm not sure if those were marches or if they were picketing.